Welcome to the introduction to Module 3, Character Forms and Proportions. Before we get into the meat of this module, there are just a few points I'd like to talk about just to kind of prepare you for the content that is ahead. The first point is that you'll be learning shorthand forms in this section, and we'll cover all the major anatomical forms of characters in a very specific way, a very dynamic way, to give you a strong foundation of building blocks that you can use to build your own character forms. So we're going to be doing shorthand forms in this section, and it'll get you up to speed fairly quickly in order to draw character forms. The next point that I want to talk about is you may be wondering why, based on our theoretical model, why forms are coming in Module 3 instead of Module 4. Why do the forms come before what is obviously shape when we're talking about gesture? Because Module 4 is about gesture. But in our implementation model on the right here, we know that when we're implementing, we want to implement forms first and shapes at the same time. Forms and shapes at the same time, but starting with forms. And very much like a sculptor, we need something in front of us first to infuse all of that shape theory and that compositional theory into. And so this is why we start with forms first, because we are realists, we're realist artists, and we want to have objects and masses that exist in a place where there is time and space, and that they are sort of implied to have sort of a mass and a volume to them. And so we need to start with forms and then use those shape theories to mold the forms, which we want to try and do at the same time. Third point is that this is a section, especially if you are still very early in your art journey, that you would want to revisit quite often. Just basically strive to really get the idea of drawing these forms and then applying the dynamism to the forms so that you can get those dynamic forms done. And you'll see as we move through this module, these concepts of dynamic forms will make more sense. And the last point, a pretty important point, I really don't want you in your mind to equate anatomy with character design or character drawing. That's not to say that character design and drawing have anatomy in them. That's obvious they do. But anatomy studies really fall into the details section, especially when we're talking about detailed anatomy, detailed musculature, skeletal structure, and skin surface structures. That's really something we want to only apply when we are doing the details or the refined drawing, when we've got our forms that are implied by the shapes down, right? So don't get caught up on anatomy and terrified of anatomy, because it is very complex and there are very many components to it. But at the end of the course, I do go through a really useful resource for you to help you and guide you on learning all the complex anatomy, which, to be honest, can be learned very much in a rote fashion or a parrot fashion. You really just do a lot of observational studies just to get those details into your system. All right, that's the end of this introduction. Let's get into the meat of it.